The evenings in Cinderley were always quiet. Not empty quiet, but the kind of quiet that settles gently over rooftops, like a blanket woven from mist and lantern glow. On most nights, the town drifted slowly toward sleep, its streets soft beneath the amber light of gas lanterns. But lately, something subtle had changed. The lantern tower still burned above the hill, yet its glow felt thinner than before. Not fading, just listening. Julian Breyer noticed small things. He always had. While other children hurried along the cobbled streets after school, Julian often walked a little slower, watching how shadows moved across the ground, or how the evening wind lifted the edges of curtains in the windows of passing houses. His home stood near the quieter edge of town, where ivy climbed the brick walls and tall elm trees leaned gently over the narrow road. Inside, Julian's room was simple. A wooden desk sat beneath the window. Books rested in uneven stacks beside a small ink bottle. The curtains were thin and pale, and they moved easily whenever the evening breeze slipped through the slightly open frame. That night, Julian sat at his desk with a book open before him. But he was not reading. His thoughts moved faster than the words on the page. They often did. Questions circled one another in his mind, the way birds circle above the rooftops of Cinderley before settling for the night. What had changed? Why did the air feel different? And why, when the lantern tower flickered 2 nights ago, had he felt something stir deep inside his chest? Julian closed the book slowly. The room was quiet. Too quiet for thoughts that refused to slow down. He rose from his chair and walked toward the window. Outside, the street lantern glowed softly through the mist. Its light stretched across the road in a long, golden shape. Julian rested his hands on the window frame and looked toward the distant hill. The lantern tower stood there, steady and silent. But tonight, the mist around it moved in slow, curling shapes, as if the night itself were breathing. Julian felt the familiar pressure of restless thoughts rising again. What if something is wrong? What if no one else sees it? What if... He stopped. The wind moved the curtains beside him. Slowly, back and forth, back and forth. Julian watched the gentle rhythm. The movement was small, but steady. The curtain drifted inward, then outward, inward, then outward again. Without realizing it, Julian matched his breathing to the motion. In and out. The thoughts did not disappear, but they loosened their grip. The room seemed larger again, calmer. Julian remained by the window for a while, letting the quiet rhythm guide him. In, out. The curtain swayed. The mist outside shifted softly. Somewhere in the distance, a carriage rolled across stone before fading into silence. For the first time that evening, Julian's mind felt still enough to notice the quiet itself. Not empty, not lonely, just calm. High above the town, the lantern tower responded. The light within the glass chamber brightened slightly. Not enough for anyone to notice, but enough to change the way it held the mist around it. On the hill below, Elias Ashbourne stood near the narrow path that curved toward the tower. He had returned there again, not because he understood what had happened 2 nights before, but because something within him kept drawing him back. Elias looked toward the lantern window. The glow seemed steadier tonight, still dimmer than it once was, but no longer strained. He felt the shift in the same quiet way he had felt the fracture, like a thread tightening gently inside his chest. Elias frowned slightly. Somewhere in the town below, something had changed again. Not a sound, not a movement. Something quieter. Someone had steadied themselves, and the lantern had answered. Back in his room, Julian returned to his desk. The book still lay open where he had left it. This time, the words felt easier to follow. His thoughts moved more slowly now, no longer racing ahead of him. He glanced once more toward the window. The curtain drifted gently. The lantern tower's glow seemed almost warmer than before. Julian tilted his head slightly. Perhaps it was only the mist shifting, or perhaps he had simply imagined the difference. Either way, the restless feeling that had followed him all evening was gone. He closed the book and blew out the candle beside his desk. The room darkened, but the darkness did not feel crowded. Outside, the lantern on the street continued its quiet watch. Julian lay down and listened for a moment. The wind moved softly through the trees. Somewhere, a door closed in a distant house. Then, the town grew still. And this time, Julian's thoughts did not return. Above Cinderley, the lantern tower burned more steadily than it had the night before. The mist thinned slightly along the hill. Elias remained where he was for a long moment, studying the glow. 2 nights ago, the light had fractured. Last night, it had steadied a little. Tonight, it had grown calmer. He did not yet know why, but he knew the pattern was not random. The lantern was listening, and somewhere in the quiet streets below, someone had answered again. Cinderley slept peacefully that night. The lantern did not shine brighter, but it no longer trembled. Good night. Sweet dreams.